Hello everybody and welcome back to CAS Inspire. This session is called CAS Inspire Crafty Creations with the Crumble. My name is Will Franklin and I will be the host for this session today. During the session, please do use the question window on the right hand side of your screen to ask any questions, and I will bring these to the panelists' attention if we have time at the end. All attendees are in listen only mode. Now, if you are a social media user, please use the hashtag CAS Inspire for this event and share your thoughts and interesting topics on Twitter, Facebook, wherever you share your socials. So without further ado, let me introduce the panel this afternoon. I'm joined by Hayley Laidlow-Wilson and Nic Hughes. Hayley is a business and technology consultant with over 17 years experience advising companies on how technology can best enable their businesses and better serve their customers. She is an active STEM ambassador, the Welsh representative for the Prince's Trust, and the founder of Sniffin' Snails. Her mission is to drive more diversity into technology, which she believes starts in primary school. Nic is a specialist teacher for computing and digital learning at the Raglan Schools and is an educational consultant for Strictly Education 3BM. He is a massive fan of robotics and physical computing and is eager for more teachers to try it out in class. So, crumbles being a great topic to start that with, I'm going to now pass over to Hayley, who's going to start us off. Here we go. Okay, Hayley, you have the power.
Thank you. And I'm just going to pop that. Okay, so hopefully you can all see my screen. Okay, so I am indeed Hayley, haven't changed my name since that introduction. I am not a teacher or even in the education space, so I thought it's probably best to start with an introduction as to who I am and why I'm excited to talk about the Crumble today, and hopefully how I can help as well. So as you said, I've spent the last 17 years advising organisations from the UK government to Barclays to NatWest about how technology can enable them to operate more efficiently in my consulting speak, but most importantly to better address the needs of you and I as customers and citizens. And that's really where my passion lies. Now, I do believe that technology, so whether it's robotics, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, quantum computing, the list goes on, will continue to change our everyday lives and working lives dramatically. And I do believe that technology will be at the heart of tackling climate change, making more medical breakthroughs, improving access to education, and so on and so on. So what I'm madly passionate about, and why I'm here today, is how can we improve the diversity in technology? So in other words, how can we make sure that those inventing these technology-enabled solutions are more representative of society? And what's really driven that passion, and hence why you'll probably understand more why I'm here today, is, well, firstly, my brother is Joseph Burks, the inventor of the Crumble. So you can probably imagine what my childhood was like. We were forever taking things apart, experimenting. So he certainly lit the spark there, no pun intended. I then was lucky enough to have a teacher called Mrs. Paxton who suggested I look into a career in consulting. I remember going home and yahooing, I think it was at the time, world's best consultancies. As you can imagine, growing up with my brother, you tend to be a bit competitive. And they talked about how they'd invented a digital pen. So this would have been, probably like early 2000, that would go at the end of hospital beds. And that was really it for me. I went on to join university and joined Accenture in 2005. And then over the years, I was very privileged to work on some exciting projects that really opened my eyes up to actually how technology was being used beyond what I'd been exposed to whilst living in Holywell in North Wales. But as I moved from client to client and from different consultancies, I personally just became really increasingly frustrated by the lack of diversity in the teams I was working with. Most were privately school educated with parents from similar backgrounds and male. So, as Einstein said, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So a couple of years ago, both my husband and I exited London and headed back to North Wales, really to work out what we were going to do to make a difference to this. So we did a couple of things. He's also an engineer. So I started working with STEM Learning, the organisation, and doing lots of talks in secondary schools, kind of talks around a day in the life in 2030, etc. I began working with the Prince's Trust to help make work experience connections with people in the Prince's Trust, and started the Berksy blog, which was for teenagers, just to talk about actually how technology is changing different industries. But again, as you can imagine, what I noticed was that stereotyping of, you know, those taking computer science, it already set in, and we needed to do something much earlier. So I started talking to my brother, and actually finally, I admit, playing with the Crumble just a couple of years ago with my little ones who are 7 and 4. And what I found is they kept coming home and asking to make crafty crumble creations. And that was really when I had a bit of an aha moment. So I knew from speaking to my brother that lots was already happening in the school space related to the computing curriculum. So I began to wonder what we could do to make an impact at home. You know, after all, teachers, with parents and families being the biggest influences of children, etc., etc. So in 2021, probably earlier than December, we launched Sniffin' Snails, with Joseph being the chief inventor. And reading off the website, so Sniffin' Snails is aimed at the home environment, so it is home learning. It's offering kits and content designed to teach skills for the 21st century, raise those eyebrows and aspirations, smash technology stereotypes, and grow the next generation of creative problem solvers. And in December last year, if I just go on to the next slide, in December last year,
Hayley, sorry to interrupt. There's a bit of your screen that's cut off. I don't know why. Would you be able to come out of full screen and go back in again, see if that fixes it?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I didn't want to interrupt your flow. It was all going so well.
No, it's fine. Does that work or not?
Yeah, it's got the same. We're sort of we're almost in like a square ratio here instead of widescreen.
Well, I'll tell you what I will do is, can I just zoom in on this? It's probably because of my, does that work?
That's, yeah, we can see more of it that way, yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah, that works.
Okay.
We tested it. It worked perfectly a moment ago, didn't it? We love IT, don't we?
How strange. Yeah, we do love technology. Yeah, so as I was saying, in December just gone in 2021, we launched the computing kit, so that uses the Crumble to teach what makes a computer and the programming concepts aligned to the curriculum. But core to kind of everything that we wanted to do is to make sure that not only the products and everything we're doing are using sustainable materials, compostable, etc., but are also a bit more reusable, like Lego, and are not subscription based. So what's interesting for everybody here, you'll find on the website, so the picture of projects, a virtual tinkering shed, which has lots of projects that use the Crumble that are free for anybody to use and to access without a subscription or need to register or anything like that. We're also in the process of building up lots of resources for grown-ups and little learners, and stories. So whether that be stories about how technology is changing a particular industry in the form of postcards from the future from Elfie, which Elfie came from my little one wanting to do that, and also activity sheets that you'll be able to download as well. So if I just now flick on, I can't use my mouse, there you go. So this gives you an idea of some of the projects that are up or will be up now in the next couple of days, whether it's plant monitors, robotics orchestras, auto greeters, various other just fun creations that use the Crumble. They'll be up on the Tinkering Shed, and also various other things are in the pipeline as well. So something that we've been working on lately is a play in the day. for schools to act out how all the parts of a computer can work together, which has been super fun to do. So really, what I just wanted to hop on here was to raise awareness that these resources are there for you. They're free to use. So really, all I would say, if I use my right mouse, is if you wanted to take a look at the website, sign up for the newsletter, follow us on Instagram or Facebook for updates on projects when they're released. But also, actually, if you just had an idea or feedback or a request for a particular idea for a project, then just feel free to reach out to me at hayley@sniffandsnails.com. So that is really it from me, was just to say these resources are there, just to keep following to see what else is there for inspiration. And now I will hand over to Nic, who will run through his tips about using the Crumble as a teacher, and I think we'll have time for a Q&A at the end.
Thank you very much, Hayley. I'll pass over presenter rights to you, Nic. Okay.
Can you see my presentation rights?
Yeah.
Yes, excellent, great, it works, and you can see all my screen as well. Hopefully, cool. Okay, so hello there, everyone. As I said, I'm Nic. I am a primary school teacher, and so I'm going to sort of come at this from the school side as well to talk through some of the tips, because I've been using Crumble for a number of years. I only recently met Hayley, but of course I've known her brother for quite a long time and met him at various events, and he's helped out at jams I've run in London. So it's really nice to meet you, Hayley. It was good. And see the Sniff and Snail stuff, because the Sniff and Snail stuff is really cool. I've got one of the books, which I don't have here because at home, but it's really good. So it's great to look at all that sort of stuff. This is me. I do a lot for loads of things. Crumble is just one of many things that I've been involved with. But as I said earlier, it's one of my real passions. I really like physical computing. Microbit's one of my other passions as well. But the Crumble is sort of where it started in some respects for me. I remember being shown it by Jane Waite at a CAS meeting many years ago. So let me just go through. So within Crumble, you've got to ask yourself, why do we do it in school? Now, these are some of the areas that, of course, it fits into. Computing, of course, it fits into, looking at inputs, outputs, and physical systems. But bizarrely, and Hayley might correct me if I'm wrong here, I was always led to believe that it was designed originally as a design technology tool, and that's what it was for originally. And, of course, it can do some really great things with creating interactive models and making things spin and move. So that's where it's got loads and loads of possibilities. And also, of course, within science as well, when we're doing electronics and circuits, it gives you that extra level where you can do other things beyond just a basic circuit. So where it fits in to the curriculum is in a range of areas, and it really adds to it. And actually, within the DT curriculum, it's almost it is a requirement to do something with programming to actually make something happen. This is one of my favourite projects, I think, that I've done over the years, which is building a buggy. Now, we are going to share the links to the presentation at the end, and in it will be embedded some links to some other resources as well. And this is a project that I've run hundreds of times, maybe that's an exaggeration, 50 times, where children, over the course of an hour, create a Crumble buggy, and then they program it to do something. Sometimes it's going around a maze, sometimes it's just making it move, sometimes it's moving it in a shape. It depends on the time and the ability of the children. But this is you can see it's designed just with a plastic container. It's quite low key, really can do good opportunities for recyclable materials. And the children have a really good interactive experience to get the Crumble doing something with very minimal. In fact, they've never probably used the Crumble before. It's their first experience. It was actually developed, most interestingly, with a child that I met at Jams and Mozfest. So we developed it. The person who developed it with me was, I think, 11 at the time. And so it's impressive. And again, I'll share links to all of that later on. So that's one of the projects that I really like. It's developed into many things over the years. Phil Bagg is someone I'm going to mention in a moment, who's another educator who really likes the Crumble. But we developed it into more of a DT project where, of course, they had to design a moving vehicle. So you can see from these pictures are some of the more advanced ideas. It was all around that basic idea, but then sometimes we were making a frame using that using joins and things like that, which is all part of DT, and then of course sometimes we're just using container. The bike still to this day is the best thing I've ever seen, I think, anyone do for this. The bike is very complicated to do because of course the wheels have to turn in opposite directions. And of course Phil does this really nice project where they build robots. They sort of do robot wars. I use that phrase lightly, not lightly, but where they have to sort of like push each other out of a ring, as I understand it, but they're using controllers as well. It's really, really nice project. So these are some links to a presentation and a worksheet that are completely available. You can have for free. I will share those links with the presentation later on. This is another project I've done where we created something called RoboZoo. And this tweet actually is, I think maybe this tweet's actually from the Microbit, but I've done it with a Crumble as well. And basically where we created moving creatures. So this is an early idea where we use a servo, which is a bit more of an advanced type of motor, where we create, very simple, the mouth moves sort of open and closed. And that's one sort of beginning of the project. And then as we get more advanced, we get into this. Now I'm going to see if I can actually open this up. Can someone just confirm they can see my video? Hopefully it's loading, I can see it good. So this is an example of some RoboZoo things we've done in the past. And these are moving creatures. Hopefully I'll mute myself so I can't hear it. But you can see that these are creatures that are moving. They've been programmed with, I've done it with a few different devices before, but this one can be done with Crumbles as well, where you actually create these moving creatures. Very large scale, but you can make neopixels, flash, and of course you can make things move as well. So that's just one of those really nice, quite cool, much more involved projects, but it was a DT project with computing elements to it. You've already mentioned this bit, Hayley, which is great. In terms of ideas for projects, definitely the place I would always look at initially is looking at the Crumble website. Because there's a load of nice projects within there, loads of new ideas are constantly put on there. Twitter is another really good one. If you search for the hashtag Crumble on Twitter, you will see loads of ideas from people who've just published different ideas. Phil Bang, which I'll quickly mention again, he's done some really, really nice projects over the years. And this is a book that he has, which is purchasable, which has got loads of STEM ideas all to do with Crumble. I get name checked in it, which I'm very pleased about. But there's a link on this page that takes to his website, which has got loads of other activities with a bit more of a school focus. So it's stuff that's got, which in terms of if you want some lesson planning to use within your within the classroom, it's got some ideas within there. So his website's Codeit as well, and all of that's freely available as well. So just to finish up, I'm just going to give you a few top tips. Really, I've talked about a couple of the projects. And I just want to give you some top tips, really. These are the things that over the course of using the Crumble for the last, I don't know, I'm going to say 6 years. I don't know. How long has it existed for, Hayley? I can't remember now. These are the things that I think trip people up. They trip me up from time to time as well. But I've definitely seen it in sessions where I've run them with teachers and with kids as well. So one of the most important things to Crumble, make sure you turn the battery pack on, okay? Because often the motors do not work without the battery pack on, and neopixels don't work. So make sure the battery pack is on and the light is on. That's really important. Start small and try things yourself first without the class around you. Do not try and do Crumble with having never touched it before in a classroom. Okay, it will be a recipe for chaos, maybe fun chaos, but you probably won't get as much out of it. Do it yourself, play around with it, do it in a club. Do it in your code club, play around with it. You don't need more than 15 kits would be a great starting point, but you can get away with much less than that when you've got less groups around. When you're starting out, focus on wiring or programming, not both, because doing both at the same time is difficult because of course you're having to debug code and debug the wiring. So it's really important to try and focus on one of them. Don't try and do both things at once. It's confusing. It's confusing enough for the students, let alone the teachers. Always have spare components about so you can swap them out. Sometimes a Crumble, I've never seen a Crumble die actually, but it's possible something's going a bit wrong, so let's just put a different Crumble in. Sometimes a light stops working, so have a spare so you can just swap it out because sometimes it's that, or it's a wire. This is the problem with electronics. This is one that is a great tip. Wipe the Crumble before you use them with a new class. Basically, download a blank program. So if you've used a Crumble before, that'll make more sense. But make sure there's nothing on the Crumble. The reason why I say this is sometimes kids wire it up and it does something, and they're like, oh, I've done it. But they haven't. All they've done is plugged in a Crumble that already was being programmed by someone else. So try and wipe those Crumbles beforehand. You want them to have a fresh experience and not necessarily get confused by what other people might have done on the Crumble before. And the last little tip, again, a bit more of an advanced tip, but still a tip, is the motor light. So when you turn a motor on, there's a little tiny light on the Crumble that turns on. They are super useful for debugging code, to checking things are running. Even if you're not using the motors, you can use that motor light block to help debug your code, because a light comes on. Because other than that, there's nothing on the Crumble to tell you that it's running. They're the only two outputs on a Crumble without plugging something in, are those two little lights. That's everything I think I had to say. If you want to get in touch, of course, you can get in touch via all the means that I put at the front. I should have put this slide at the end as well, shouldn't I? I'm Duckstar on Twitter, but hopefully there's a few questions people would like to ask, so we can field them now. I will stop
sharing my screen. Thank you both of you for those presentations. It was really good introduction. I'm quite new to Crumble. I did a course with the Crumble last Wednesday, so I feel pretty okay with it now, but I've definitely got some questions of my own. I'll start with the questions from the attendees. So firstly, there's some love for the Sniff and Snail website, saying it looks great, and that's nice. And I've written it down on my pad to make sure I go back to that later. And I can see in there as well, Hayley, that there's lots of completely openly available projects for people to have a go at, which is really good too. So that's a great resource for budding crumblers, whether they're at school or at home. Question to either of you really, but based on something you said, Nic, is how do you wipe a Crumble?
How you wipe a Crumble is you basically download no program to it. That's it. I can demonstrate it if you want. I can show you on the screen. But yeah, basically when you open up the Crumble software, just basically don't drag any blocks over to it and just hit the play button with the Crumble plugged in. That's it. So it downloads a blank program, nothing at all, and that will wipe it. I say wipe. You're basically putting a program of nothing. I'm just using the word wipe. That's not quite technically accurate. Upload a program with nothing in it is actually what you're doing. But it's a really good bit of a good tip, I think.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. How do you separate the wiring and the programming elements? Do you download a program for them first and they just wire it to see if the wiring works? Is that a good suggestion?
Hayley, do you want to field this? I'll happily field it if you want.
How do you separate so having used it now for the last 2 years, I separate it by building a circuit first with just a simple light, and then once you've done that, then basically just adding a program start and then turning that light on. So the code itself couldn't be any more simpler, and they focused really on the connections, and you've explained where the data is being passed through and where the power is, blah blah blah.
If we're thinking more complicated, which so if the Crumble Buggy is a good example of one, I give them a wiring diagram that they have to follow. I want it connected like this. I tell them this is how it is, because I'm not assessing that. I'm not worried about. Sometimes you might go wire it up and just leave them to it, but I'm telling them this is the wiring, and then the focus is the programming. So that way you've got that side of it. I've never really done it the other way, but yeah, absolutely, you could give them the program and ask them to wire it up. But normally I'm always attacking it from a computing point of view. So if I'm doing computing, that's the bit I want them to focus on versus doing the programming. But I think both are totally valid. But again, it depends on the complexity. The wiring diagram for that Buggy, when you start adding sensors, is complicated. It's very complicated.
Thank you. Yeah, that is really clear. I know from this thing last week that even as a grown-up who's quite au fait with computing, we still managed to two teachers managed to wire it up with two positives and couldn't work out why the light wouldn't turn on. I suppose when it comes to what age to do this with, I know the Teach Computing curriculum puts Crumbles in year 5. But from what you said, Hayley, you've done Crumble work with your children at a much younger age, and I'm sure it's very accessible to younger ages as well. I think from the sort of the wiring side, year 4 is the age where in science they cover simple circuits, and then year 6 then go into more complicated circuits. So I guess from a wiring side, that's the age where circuitry would make sense. So that idea of wiring up just a light bulb, any child who's gone through year 4 and covered that in science, yeah, should be able to wire, hopefully wire wire up a light bulb and then test a program to see if it works. But I think the Crumble is fantastic. It's taken circuitry to a whole other level. It's a programmable circuit, and I think that's so cool. And all the different options.
I'm trying to think if I've ever done the Buggy project activity with year 3. I don't think I ever have. I think 4 is the youngest I've ever tried doing it with a class. I've definitely done it with younger children in a room, but they're probably children who are self-selecting and probably like already into that type of stuff. But yeah, year 4 sounds about right in terms of that curriculum side. I know NCC put it at 5, but there's no reason why you couldn't do it earlier. But again, if you're using the NCC lessons, there's a reason the progression's in there. So you need to make some decisions about that progression in terms of a curriculum point of view within schools. But from a club's point of view, from the Sniff and Snails point of view, which is home learning, just give it a go at any level, isn't it?
And even with both of mine, I very much focused on the electronic side of things before I even started to introduce programming. So with my youngest, who's 4, probably when she was 3, I started just doing Play-Doh circuits with her. So obviously she's using Play-Doh, and she'll now know, you know, the way that the way that a current flows and what all of the components are called. So it's just, I think, giving them that the kind of the concepts as early as possible, and just the wording as well helps as well, just bring it all together rather than, you know, and obviously they need to learn to read first too. So that was the other reason why I was like, I'm not doing coding using that if they can't read. Yeah,
it's one of the issues, isn't it? That there you go. There's a suggestion for Joseph. Can we have a visual version of the Crumble interface, and then that way you can do it with younger children? There you go. Scratch Junior for Crumble.
Yeah, perfect.
There you go. Yeah.
And is there, am I right in thinking there's sort of different types of Crumble software? Is there Crumble software available from different people, or is there one sort of go-to software for Crumble programming?
There's one go-to software. There are various, I believe there are various different like add-ons or boards that you can place the Crumble on, like Crumble playgrounds, just where people have found it difficult to use the croc leads. But there's one version of the software for Crumble to use. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that keeps it simple, which is good. And does it work on a Chromebook?
It does work on the Chromebook. So Nick's looking at me. It hasn't done, but I believe, I was speaking to my brother earlier, there are more updates coming as well, just to make sure that everything works on the Chromebook that does on kind of the Mac and PC too.
It's worth saying, it does work on a Chromebook. I haven't tried it, but it is something you need to install on a Chromebook. So it's not web-based. So that's something, if you're someone in school, you need to make sure your admin pushes the app to the Chromebooks. It takes mere seconds to do it, but you need to do that first. It's not like some other, it's not like the microbit where you can go onto a website, which is, you know, maybe that's in the plan in the long term, but for now you need to install it. But it does work fine. It works really well.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Hayley and Nick, for your time today, sharing your Crumble creations, and thank you to everyone in the audience for joining us today. Please may I encourage you to share your personal highlights from today's session on social media and on the CAS website using the hashtag CAS Inspire. And when you do have a go at using Crumbles in class, do take lots of photos and share your wonderful ideas with us. And using the project ideas we've already seen and the ones on the Sniff and Snail website, we can put Crumble all over the curriculum really and use it for lots of different things. So let's make sure it's not just a 1 year group, 1 term deal. Let's get it in everywhere we can, because they're awesome. I now realize, having not really paid much attention to them for too many years. At the end of this,
Halloween was amazing in this house.
yeah, I bet. At the end of this webinar, there will be a short survey, so please do complete that when it comes up on the screen. It only takes a minute to do. Please continue to spread the word of CAS Inspire. We are having events like this every Wednesday at the same time at 4 o'clock to 4:30, primary and secondary. Have a look on the CAS website for more details as they run through the entire year. Next Wednesday at 4 o'clock, our next primary session is about fantastic cross-curricular ways to teach about climate change in the primary classroom. Another very, very relevant topic and something we could probably use Crumbles for. But thank you for joining, and we hope to see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you very much, Hayley. Thank you, Nic.